Hello and welcome. You're on VITV with Into Vietnam Weekend, which provides you with the most comprehensive and in-depth views of Vietnam's economy in the past 7 days. Top stories of the week. The NFSC forecasts Vietnam's inflation will not exceed 6.3% in 2013. The State Bank of Vietnam releases credit institution data in the first 11 months. Vietnam's business environment for local firms is in the focus of this week's Business Talk. It's joined by Mr. Samir Goyar, Senior Financial Sector Specialist of the World Bank in Vietnam. Let's begin with this week's figure. In its report of Vietnam's economic situation in the first 11 months of this year, the National Finance Supervisory Committee says Vietnam's inflation in 2013 would not exceed 6.3%, and the target to tame the inflation lower than that of last year is totally feasible. As reported, the country's consumer price index rise in November has been slowed down at 0.34% from October, rising 5.5% against December 2012 and 5.78% over the same period last year. Thus, the inflation rise in November 2012 slowed down at the second lowest level since 2003. The major reason was due to the weak demand of the economy. Therefore, the price hike in the remaining months of the year will be low, in contrary to the common route in the past decade. This year, inflation is driven primarily by the cost-push factor due to the price adjustment for public services and the prices of basic commodities managed by the state. NFSC also forecasts Vietnam's balance of international payments in 2013 will enjoy a surplus of about $1.5 to $2 billion, of which the balance of current account payments enjoyed a surplus of about 6% of gross domestic product in the first half of this year. In its monthly updated report, Asia in 2014 promises. The ANZ says Vietnam's economy will be kept stable, but the pace of growth will be reduced as the banking sector still copes with the issue of resolving high non-performing loans. ANZ says Vietnam GDP growth will hit 5.5% in 2014. Local demand will be still under pressure of high non-performing loan ratio and low credit growth. The ANZ expects the Vietnamese government will pay more attention to developing infrastructure to boost growth and production output. Vietnam's average inflation in 2014 is expected to be around 7.5 to 8%. And the construction of basic infrastructure will create some pressure on the local prices and boost import demand. The ANZ kept its earlier forecast that SBV will maintain its refinancing rate at 7% at the end of 2014. Credit growth is said to be slowed against the context. The VAMC has made little progress in dealing with structural issues in the banking sector. According to the World Bank, Vietnam remains one of the world's top 10 remittances receiving countries, with remittances from overseas Vietnamese this year estimated at $10.6 billion, up 6.5% compared with last year. Remittances through official channels in Ho Chi Minh City are expected to reach $4.8 billion, compared with $4.1 billion last year. The remittances are mostly from the US and Europe, but remittances from China and the Republic of Korea increased sharply in 2013, accounting for nearly 5% compared with the 0.2 and 0.3% of total remittances to Ho Chi Minh City in previous years. Economists say despite economic turmoil, the stability of Vietnamese dong has helped the country to attract foreign direct investments, as well as the remittances from overseas Vietnamese community. Coming up next is some major macroeconomic and investment news. The State Bank of Vietnam has announced a number of basic criteria for the operation of the credit institution system as of October the 31st. The total assets of the entire system reached 5,424.5 trillion dong, increasing 57.4 trillion dong compared to the end of September. and an increase of 338.7 trillion dong, or 6.66% from the end of 2012. Joint venture banks still lead with growth of total assets with 16.3%, following by cooperative bank with 12.24%, state-owned commercial banks with 7.7%, and joint stock commercial bank with 7.57%. However, ranking by size of total assets, state-owned commercial banks are still on the top with 2,371 trillion dong, following by joint stock commercial banks with 2,323 trillion dong. Notably, the total assets of the financial companies and financial leasing companies plummeted by 55.87% compared with the end of 2012. Equity capital of the group of financial companies and financing leasing companies also fell sharply, down 75.94% compared to the end of 2012, making total equity capital of the whole system fall by more than 2.2 trillion dong to nearly 453 trillion dong compared to the end of September. Equity capital of state-owned commercial banks also fell slightly to 161.4 trillion dong. The good news is after many months in the negative, the equity capital of joint stock commercial banks increased by 3.08% compared to the end of 2012, reaching 188.8 trillion dong. Overall, the total equity capital of the whole system increased by 6.33%. Especially the charter capital of the whole system increased more than 4 trillion dong during the month, reaching 415.7 trillion dong, up 6.02% from the end of 2012.
The interbank market in 2013 had some movements in contrast of those in 2012, showing that liquidity has been improved but not sustainable as short-term capital need is still high. Specifically, total amount of transactions as well as average transaction per day on market falling sharply compared to 2012 show that the liquidity of the banking system improved. However, the higher ratio of under 1 month compared to 2012 shows that short-term capital needs remain high and liquidity is not really sustainable. Transaction amount and the average interest rates in the last months of 2013 tend to increase over same periods, show that credit is improving. The total transaction amount put in Vietnam dong and US dollars and average transaction amount per day in 11 months of 2013 were much lower than those in the same period last year, showing that liquidity of the banking system has been greatly improved.
The Prime Minister has just asked the State Bank of Vietnam to direct commercial banks to boost disbursement of 30 trillion dong package for businesses and people. After 6 months of deployment of 30 trillion dong housing assistance package for low-income people, to this point only about 1% of the amount has been disbursed. With sluggish progress, businesses and people complain on access to capital, while banks don't dare to lend. Many objective and subjective reasons have been pointed out by management agencies and experts, in which the key reason is due to short supply of eligible products. Among the projects proposed in the 30 trillion dong loan package, many have not yet completed procedures. The State Bank of Vietnam has just issued Circular Number 29, regulating foreign currency loans of credit institutions, branches of foreign banks to resident borrowers, to replace Circular 37. With the new circular, the State Bank of Vietnam has tighter control over foreign currency lending by requiring banks to report specifically on financial situation, production, business activities, and source of loan repayment of customers. Besides, banks have to report specifically on source of fund to conduct foreign currency loans, and at the same time commit and ensure to balance foreign currency in accordance with the duration and amount of the loans, while previously banks only need to ensure balance in foreign currency for loans. Another noteworthy point is the short-term foreign currency loans for businesses to import petroleum and for domestic capital needs to implement production business plans of exports through border crossing will be continued through December 31st, 2014 instead of December 31st, 2013 as before. The loans for other needs have nothing changed compared to the provisions of Circular 37. While securities and real estate are potentially risky, gold and US dollars are no longer attractive. Savings are the channel selected by many people in the rear end. Currently, interest rates fell sharply compared to those at the beginning of the year. However, savings still attract customers. According to data from the State Bank of Vietnam in Hanoi branch, as of October 31st, 2013, total mobilized capital of credit institutions in the area was more than 988 trillion dong, increasing 1.13% from September 30th and 10.26% from December 31st, 2012. Vietnam dong deposits continue with high growth of 1.7%, while foreign currency deposits decreased compared to previous month. According to experts, with the current situation, saving channels is relatively safe in the context that stock market and real estate do not clearly show growing trend.
According to the Vietnam Internet Network Information Center, over 90,000 new .vn domains were activated in the first 11 months of this year, bringing the total number of national domain names to 263,900. The increase has helped the country to keep its number one position in the Southeast Asia for national domain registration and activation. Domains with Vietnamese names accounted for 127,166. The Vietnam Internet Network Information Center said it earned a revenue of 143 billion dong, or $6.8 million from domain activation and subscription fees in 2013, 15% above its annual target. According to the Ministry of Information and Communications, Internet service providers in Vietnam earned 15 trillion dong, more than $714 million in revenue last year, with 5 trillion dong or $238 million coming from third-generation network services. Between 2009 and 2013, the number of Internet users increased by 170%, and broadband availability climbed 7.5 times compared with 2005-2009. The number of Internet users is expected to reach 60 million by 2018, with total revenue from Internet services and content hitting 100 trillion dong or $4.7 billion.
The Vietnamese government, the United Nations and the EU signed the agreement on the revised expenditure quota for 2013 in Hanoi on December 9th. This document will guide local agencies and international partners in implementing ODA programs and projects in Vietnam. The UN-EU expenditure quota is a tangible contribution among efforts to increase the effectiveness of ODA in Vietnam. Is seen as an important tool to enhance the transparency and strict obedience of Vietnamese agencies, as well as to harmonize administrative issues among the Vietnamese government and its partners. The complete and updated content of the expenditure quota includes more appropriate regulations on the allowable expenditure of ODA, and suits better the current market and price conditions. The new quotas are revised based on updated market prices to attract services with quality human resources and encourage cooperation while maintaining the necessary flexibility so that proper adjustments are made to suit the various demands and models of ODA projects in Vietnam. Foreign trade news will continue the program.
Despite domestic and global economic difficulties, Vietnam-US trade in 2013 continued to grow steadily. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, two-way trade turnover in 2013 may reach about $28.7 billion, up 15.3%, with Vietnam export raking in about $23.7 billion, up 16.7%, and imports about $5 billion, up 8.7%. Most noticeably, U.S. imports of apparel from Vietnam may reach $8.5 billion, a double-digit increase of 10.4% over the $7.7 billion in 2012. In addition, Vietnam exports of higher value-added products from modern manufacturing (FDI) are increasing sharply. According to the Vietnam Food Association, Vietnam's rice exports are not likely to reach the set target of 6.7 million tons this year. Rice exports were estimated at 6.1 million tons in the past 11 months, down 14% in volume and 18% in price compared to the same period last year. The association said the annual target had been adjusted twice to 6.6 to 6.7 million tons due to the sharp fall in rice shipments caused by tough competition in the shrinking consumer markets. To promote rice exports in 2014, the association has asked businesses to ensure the quality of high-valued rice, especially the fragrance rice. The association has proposed setting up a fund to support rice exporters in the signing of major contracts with foreign partners.
The Vietnam Pepper Association says pepper exports are likely to beat 130,000 to 135,000 tons this year for a record value of $900 million, up 12% from last year. In the first 10 months, 123,000 tons were exported for $817 million, an increase of 19.7% in volume and 17.1% in value. The association says both export volumes and prices had risen this year. Global pepper supply is much lower than demand, which has kept prices high. In this situation, pepper exports will reach $1 billion soon. Vietnam exports a spice to more than 80 countries and territories, with the US, EU, and Asia being the largest importers. The strong growth of export and import activities in the past years has made logistics an important service industry in the global trade. According to the roadmap of Vietnam's commitments upon WTO accession, from 2014, foreign service suppliers will be permitted to establish enterprises with 100% foreign capital investment to provide warehousing services and freight transport agency services. It poses big challenges for logistics businesses in Vietnam.
The first Vietnam Logistics Forum under the theme Enhancing the Competitiveness Capability by Linking Exporters, Importers, and Logistics Providers was held in Ho Chi Minh City recently. Representatives of the Ministry of Industry and Trade said, currently there are about 1,000 local enterprises and 25 foreign companies operating in the logistics sector. However, the sector structure has been uneven, since the majority of the companies involved in the freight transport services is mainly small-scale businesses, accounting for 70%. They provide only low added value services. Notably, logistic cost on GDP is over 20%. This is a high proportion stemming from insufficient infrastructure as well as weak transport capacity. The state logistics managers should provide unified directions in terms of mechanisms and policies to have breakthroughs in the sector.
Các nước trong khu vực và những nước mà mới hội nhập thì chúng ta có thể là cái ngành logistics chúng ta được phát triển rất là nhanh, khá nhanh. Một phần nào đã đáp ứng được cái nhu cầu tăng trưởng kinh tế và đặc biệt là xuất nhập khẩu trong nước. Nhưng mà xét về mặt cạnh tranh để bảo đảm được năng lực cạnh tranh của sản phẩm Việt Nam thì cái thách thức đối với ngành logistics còn đặt ra đối với ngành logistics rất là quan trọng.
Do những cái yếu tố mà chậm phát triển và chưa đồng bộ của hệ thống logistics và cũng như là một số các nguyên nhân khác nữa trong cả cái thủ tục hành chính chẳng hạn, thì nó làm cho cái giá thành cuối cùng của sản phẩm chúng ta khi mà được lưu thông tại thị trường nó tăng lên rất là cao. Và chính vì vậy thì nó dẫn đến một cái thực tế là các cái giá trị gia tăng của chúng ta trong các sản phẩm này vốn đã thấp chưa cao do những yếu tố về khía cạnh về công nghệ cũng như là về kỹ năng quản lý và về nhiều yếu tố khác, thì nay nó lại bị tiếp tục giảm thêm nữa do những cái yếu tố phi sản xuất.
Accounting for Vietnam Logistics Association or VLA, Currently, there are about 1,200 companies providing logistics services, but most of them are small and medium-sized ones, with average rated capital of only about 4 to 6 billion Vietnam dong. Their skillful staff is very modest, accounting for only 5 to 7% of the total human resources. Most of local logistics providers operate as agents or undertake separate stages, such as subcontractors in the logistic chain for international suppliers. Although only 25 multinational logistic enterprises operate in Vietnam, they account for over 70 to 80% market share in the sector.
Thì do cái thói quen mà chúng ta bán phóp, mua ship đấy, tức là bán phóp tức là người bán chỉ giao hàng tới cầu tàu thôi, tới cầu tàu thôi, tới cảng thôi. Còn lại cái phần còn lại toàn bộ cái vận chuyển và giao hàng là của người mua hàng, của người nhập khẩu. Thì khi cái nhà nhập khẩu là người nước ngoài, thì người ta sẽ chỉ định tàu của người ta chỉ định các đối tác logistics của người ta chứ không sử dụng dịch vụ Việt Nam.
Besides, another reason to be mentioned here is that foreign partners often prevail in contract negotiations and gain priority in selecting foreign logistic providers. However, experts said it is important not to identify the weaknesses of the domestic logistics industry, but to solve the problems that remain, as well as to figure out the development direction for the sector in the future.
Để giải quyết được cái vấn đề này thì chúng ta có một số cái nội dung nhiệm vụ rất là ưu tiên, trọng tâm. Mà thứ nhất là chúng ta phải tiếp tục có một cái chiến lược tổng thể để phát triển một cách đồng bộ hệ thống logistics của Việt Nam. Và cái này thì nó đòi hỏi phải có sự phối hợp và kết nối chặt chẽ giữa Bộ Công Thương, Bộ Giao thông Vận tải, một số bộ ngành có liên quan khác trong cái định hướng thống nhất về cái chủ trương phát triển của hệ thống logistics Việt Nam.
Currently, Vietnam has participated in numerous bilateral and multilateral free trade agreements. The common playground opens up really tremendous opportunities for commercial development in the future, but also creates huge challenges for Vietnamese businesses. Therefore, they need to grasp the situation to take advantage of the opportunities and minimize the challenges brought by the integration.
In its Doing Business 2014, the World Bank says Vietnam has implemented more than 20 policy changes since 2005 and brought about more favorable business environment. However, the government should continue regulatory and policy reforms, stabilize macroeconomy, develop infrastructure system, and reform the banking industry to support enterprises. VITV reporter had a talk with Mr. Samir Goyer, senior financial sector specialist of the World Bank in Vietnam. More to follow. Thank you so much for your participation in our program today. First of all, can you assess on Vietnam business environment over the past 9 years of restructuring?
As you have clearly seen, over the last 10 years, there have been many changes. Starting with the last decade, the government of Vietnam has been wanting to make inroads into becoming a more market-oriented economy and attract and work more interactively with the outside countries and governments. In that regard, they have made commitments to the WTO. They have made progress in terms of various cross-border custom regulation changes, which making it and facilitating trade. Vietnam's trade is one of the strongest parts of its activities. They have also diversified into activities as well as reformed some of the sectors from being a SOE-dominated economy to an economy which has some strong private sector investments, but clearly more has to be done.
What do you think are the rooms for Vietnam to improve the business environment in 2014?
On the investment climate side, one of the important factors for ensuring that businesses can prosper is to ensure that there's stability in the economy. The main one which is under discussion is the financial sector and the banking sector specifically. So clearly more reforms are needed to ensure that the financial system can continue to be sort of an engine of growth to provide the financing so that the investments can take place. Similarly, for Vietnam to investment climate to be more supportive to businesses, there is clearly more need to work on the infrastructure improvements. As you know, the electricity prices have been rising, and how reforms in that regard can help make the generation more efficient, distribution more efficient, as well as the pricing more reasonable. That's just one example of infrastructure, but I think it's an important one. Similarly, there is also a lot of room for looking at how some of the other resources like land and capital are better utilized. So, role of capital markets, for example, going forward will need to be very important. But finally, perhaps most importantly, there is also a lot of need to continue to make better progress on the human development side. By that I mean making sure that there is a good pool of professional skilled staff to support improvements in the economy, with the new capital coming in from outside, as well as for the economy to reach its needs of the new emerging economy into the middle income status and solidify its position there. Maybe finally, as we just discussed the doing business indicators, regulatory reforms and policy reforms will continue to be important, not just for Vietnam. These are important for many countries which want to grow fast. There are clearly some areas where progress has been made, but there are many areas for Vietnam, with Vietnam coming out 99 rank in the countries which are ranked, where it can clearly improve. So we hope that those efforts will continue, despite the fact that the last few years there has been a slowdown of restructuring and reform because of the global environment as well as some local situations.
And thank you so much for your informative sharing in this program.
Yeah, welcome.
And that's all for now. Thank you for your attention. For comments and feedbacks, you can reach us at email at intovietnam@vitv.vn or give us a call at 0422208288. Goodbye for now.